Hey guys, welcome back to the BuzWeaver channel, and today our top story is going to be what will be the top story probably for the next few days and into next week, and that is the People's Convoy will be starting this week. But I want to start it off with this very interesting post from the Post-Millennial. Looking at Democrat likely voters alone, 65% say they favored Trudeau's crackdown on the protesters, and 17% said they disapproved. That is absolutely astounding, to think that the Democrats would have approved of such a draconian measure by Trudeau, because the entire time during the Trump administration, we heard how Trump was fascist and oppressive, and of course they could never demonstrate this or produce evidence to suggest it other than perceived slights that they had, because of course everything that revolved around President Trump was some superficial perceived slight. So let's go ahead and just jump into the story. So from Kyle Schiffkick, it's official. We start our convoy on February 25th. We have finished the dates, times, routes, pit stops, and have everything ready for the March 1st arrival on the National Mall, D.C. I'll be posting the detailed routes tomorrow. Now, of course, I've been keeping up with these particular schedules. There are different truckers leaving from different parts of the city. We'll get more into that detail here as we go through several of these articles. But as you can see here, he's going to start off in Los Angeles and make his way to Frederick, Maryland. So from the BBC, ironically enough, from the UK, U.S. trucker convoys prompt National Guard deployment in Washington. So they're already preparing. And I am very curious to see how the legacy media, mainstream media, social media will cover this, because I'm sure there'll be all sorts of exaggerations and sensationalizing. But nonetheless, let's read on. The U.S. is to deploy hundreds of unarmed National Guard troops to Washington ahead of the arrival of trucker convoy protesting against pandemic restrictions. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin approved a request from the District of Columbia's government and the U.S. Capitol Police for 700 troops. Around 25 separate convoys plan to join forces and converge on the nation's capital to replicate recent protests in Canada. Now, I find it kind of interesting that so far within the mainstream media, things have been kind of toned down. And that could be because of the extraordinary draconian measures, fascist measures, if you want to define it by what President Trump was accused of, and they could never produce the evidence of what Trudeau was doing there. So far, it seems as though the coverage has been kind of not too aggressive, but, time will go on as things unfold. From Reuters, U.S. truckers plan pandemic protest inspired by Canadian counterparts. Let's hope that it's equally as peaceful. Adelanto, California, February 23rd, taking a cue from demonstrators that paralyzed Canada's capital city, Ottawa, for weeks. U.S. truckers on Wednesday plan to embark on a 2,500-mile cross-country drive toward Washington to protest C-virus, almost said it, restrictions. I think we can say that on YouTube now. I'm not entirely sure, but nonetheless. So we can see here, I don't, from all the material that I've read, videos that I've watched, and news reports, I'm not seeing that the truckers themselves are going to camp out there in downtown and demonstrate. In other words, block traffic entirely and stop things entirely for an indefinite period of time. Of course, so I think they're only going to be there up until the 5th, or they're just going to demonstrate and then eventually end up leaving. Organizers of the People's Convoy say they want to jumpstart the economy and reopen the country. Their 11-day trek will approach the Beltway around the U.S. Capitol on March the 5th, but will not be going to D.C. proper, according to a statement. Now, of course, we heard they were going to go to the mall, so that's kind of interesting, but I guess the D.C. proper, the downtown D.C. area. So it doesn't look like they're anticipating actually being there and just congesting everything and then just remaining there. This will be just kind of a typical protest demonstration where there's an allotted time and then they move on. And then we can kind of see a little bit of that here from this article from Fox News. Americans say they back U.S. truck convoy with conditions, of course, always. Excuse me. People tell Fox News they support truckers expressing freedom of speech, but not necessarily shutting down traffic. And as you can understand, it would be kind of irritating for most people who are just trying to conduct their lives, who aren't necessarily involved in politics and other things, to be inconvenienced by these sorts of things. But civil disobedient protests like this are very common among the left. So, Panama City, Florida, Americans told Fox News they support truckers potentially staging a U.S. version of Canada's Freedom Convoy, but not all back the idea of bringing streets to a standstill. As long as they are being peaceful, as long as they're not getting violent with counter-protesters or the police, one man Patrick said. Well, that's understandable, and I hope that they do exercise the same level of restraint as the Canadians did, because wow, I commend the Canadians for their incredible level of restraint considering how they were treated. I mean, absolutely mistreated, mocked, and ridiculed. Bank accounts shut down simply for having donated. And then, of course, the two main coordinators of the convoy or the protest there in Canada, the Honkening, haven't been given bail on a simple misdemeanor charge of mischief, which, well, it's a misdemeanor here in the United States. I assume it's a misdemeanor there in Canada as well. We have freedom of assembly guaranteed in the Constitution, he continued, so therefore they need to be allowed to assemble. We have freedom of speech, so therefore they have the ability to voice their opinions. Of course they do. However, Howard of Alabama told Fox News, sometimes you need to take extra measures to get your point across and do things that need to be done. And of course, again, similarly talking about civil disobedience that we've seen that individuals have engaged in from the left. Of course, then we have the whole Chaz where they took over 6 blocks of a city. I'm not anticipating, again, that the truckers are going to go there and intentionally and deliberately clog up streets for the purposes of creating some sort of chaos or disorder. And I'm pretty sure that the National Guard and others will ensure that emergency vehicles and other things will be able to get around and do what they need to do. And here it is here. So I'm going to move on to the next section here, because this was a big controversy when it came to Canada, and that was over the crowdfunding and use of funds to provide the truckers and those to engage in these particular protests. So here in the United States, from Newsweek, People's Convoy raises $300,000 in donations for truckers' trip to D.C. Now, I'm not anticipating any disruptions with this, unless, of course, now I'm not sure if the article mentions who the donation site is, but we know that $300,000 was raised. As the People's Convoys prepare to head to Washington, D.C. to demand an end to the C-19-related mandates across the nation, the group of truckers has raised more than $300,000 in support of the protests. The convoy is scheduled to depart from Adelanto, California on Wednesday as part of an 11-day journey to the nation's capital, where they're expected to arrive on March the 5th. As of Tuesday morning, the People's Convoy has raised $311,362 in donations, according to its website. The convoy comes just days after police in Ottawa, Ontario, Canada, cleared the last of anti-COVID, I guess I can say that, mandate protest of Canada's Freedom Convoy. Of course, that was completely a debacle there in Canada by the draconian measures and basically examples of fascist-type engagements and decisions that they made there. It was really quite shameful what had happened. But I'm interested in hearing your guys' opinions and your thoughts on what you anticipate is going to potentially happen from this particular demonstration, peaceful demonstration. I am hoping here, as they started off on the 25th of this month. Be curious to know what your guys' thoughts are. And of course, that's what I had for you guys today as of the top story on this Wednesday, February the 23rd. And of course, if you haven't already, appearing there on the screen, that would be the channel icon to click on and subscribe. Thank you for all the support on Rumble, Odyssey, and BitChute. Thank you guys there for your follows as well. And of course, I will see you guys in the next video.